Thank you for attending today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. At the moment, the two sessions, namely the fourth session of the 13th National People's Congress and the fourth session of the 13th National Committee of the Chinese Political Consultative Conference, are being held in China. These annual sessions are major political events in China. Deputies to the 13th NPC are deliberating on the draft decision of the National People's Congress on improving the electoral system of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Improving the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR and ensuring patriots governing Hong Kong is necessitated by the need to advance one country, two systems, and maintain long-term stability and security in the SAR. It is a constitutional power and responsibility of the NPC, and is constitutional, lawful, and justified. Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China. How to develop and improve its electoral system is purely China's internal affairs, which no foreign country has the right to interfere in. That being said, the decision has attracted many attention from the media. Some media organizations have called or emailed the embassy for inquiries. Some people have misunderstandings on the decision or try to hype up this issue. Therefore, the Chinese embassy decided to hold this event to brief the media on the decision. I would like to take this opportunity to set the record straight for three questions. First, why does China choose to propose the plan of improving the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR at this time? Over the past 24 years since Hong Kong's return, the Chinese government has all along fully and faithfully implemented the policies of one country, two systems, Hong Kong people governing Hong Kong, and a high degree of autonomy. We have run Hong Kong affairs in accordance with the law, upheld the constitutional order in Hong Kong as established by the Constitution of China and the basic law of the Hong Kong SAR, supported the development and democracy in Hong Kong, and guaranteed the exercise of democratic rights by Hong Kong residents in accordance with the law. However, in recent years, especially after the turbulence over the proposed amendment bill in 2019, anti-China, destabilizing forces, and radical localists in Hong Kong have openly clamored for Hong Kong independence. They used the election platforms of the Hong Kong and the deliberation platforms of the Legislative Council and the district councils, or their position as public servants, to blatantly carry out anti-China, destabilizing activities to paralyze the functioning of the Legislative Council and obstruct the law-based governance of the SAR government. Some foreign and external forces interfered in Hong Kong affairs and openly provided support for those anti-China destabilizing forces in Hong Kong. These moves and activities severely jeopardize the constitutional order and the rule of law in Hong Kong, posed a grave challenge to the authority of the Constitution, the basic law, and the law safeguarding national security in the Hong Kong SAR, put China's sovereignty, security, and development interests into serious jeopardy and severely disrupted social stability of Hong Kong. These moves and activities reveal that the existing electoral system and mechanisms of the Hong Kong SAR have obvious loopholes and deficiencies, which were exploited by the anti-China destabilizing forces to seize the power of governance of the SAR. In light of such a situation, China must take necessary measures to improve the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR and remove existing institutional deficiencies and risks. This will ensure the governance of Hong Kong by Hong Kong people, with patriots as the main body, safeguard law-based and effective governance in Hong Kong, keep the implementation of one country, two systems on the right track, and lay a solid foundation for sustained stability and prosperity in Hong Kong. Second, how will China improve the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR? Proper mechanisms and institutions will be adopted to fully reflect the implement of the principle of patriots governing Hong Kong, keep the power of governance firmly in the hands of the people who love China and love Hong Kong, and ensure Hong Kong's long-term stability and prosperity. In this process, China will follow 5 principles. First, China will continue to fully and accurately implement the policies of one country, two systems, Hong Kong people governing Hong Kong, and a high degree of autonomy. We will uphold and improve the system and institutions of one country, two systems. We will ensure that patriots are the main body to govern Hong Kong. We will adhere to the principle of one country with respect for the differences of two systems. And we will uphold the overall jurisdiction of the central authorities over the SAR, and at the same time, safeguard a high degree of autonomy in the SAR. This will provide a sound systematic guarantee for patriots governing Hong Kong. Second, China will firmly safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. To this end, we will fully implement the law safeguarding national security in Hong Kong, uphold the overall social stability of Hong Kong, and resolutely prevent, stop, and punish interference in Hong Kong affairs by foreign and external forces and the attempts to use Hong Kong for acts of secession, subversion, infiltration, and sabotage. Third, China will govern Hong Kong in accordance with the law. We will uphold the institutional order of the Hong Kong SAR as established in the Constitution and the Basic Law. We will improve the relevant electoral system and mechanisms in accordance with the Constitution and the Basic Law. We will organize relevant elections in strict compliance with the Basic Law, the law on safeguarding national security in Hong Kong, relevant decisions of the NPC and its standing committee, and local laws of Hong Kong. And we will improve the ability and competence of law-based governance of Hong Kong affairs. Fourth, China will improve the electoral system in accordance with the actual conditions in Hong Kong. We will develop a democratic electoral system that suits Hong Kong's conditions and reflects the overall interests of the society. And we will ensure the extensive and balanced political participation of Hong Kong compatriots in accordance with the law. Fifth, the governance efficacy of the Hong Kong SAR will be improved to ensure the smooth and effective operation of the political and governance systems and mechanisms of the Hong Kong SAR. Finally, what will be the specific steps to improve the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR? The existing electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR was established in accordance with the relevant provisions and Annex 1 and 2 to the Basic Law, explanations and decisions of the MPC Standing Committee, and relevant provisions of local laws of the SAR. China plans to revise and improve the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR at the state level, and mainly to revise the method for the selection of the chief executive and the method for the formation of the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong SAR. At the same time, in order to maintain the continuity and the stability of the relevant system of the Hong Kong SAR, the revisions will be limited to Annex 1 and 2 to the Basic Law and will not revise the main body of the law. The overall design of the system will be centered around the reformation and greater empowerment of the Election Committee of the Hong Kong SAR. The size, composition, and formation method of the Election Committee will be adjusted and improved. The Chief Executive will continue to be elected by the Election Committee. The Election Committee will be entrusted with the new function of electing a relatively large share of Legislative Council members and directly participating in the nomination of all candidates of the Legislative Council. Through the Election Committee, the balanced and orderly political participation will be expanded and broader representation will be ensured in Hong Kong society. The relevant factors of the election will be adjusted as appropriate, and the mechanism for qualification review throughout the entire process will be established. This design is aimed to establish a new democratic electoral system suited to Hong Kong's realities and with Hong Kong characteristics. A two-step approach has been proposed, namely decision plus amendment. In the first step, the MPC makes the decision on improving the electoral system of Hong Kong in accordance with the Constitution, the Basic Law, and the law on safeguarding national security in Hong Kong, which lays out the basic principles and core elements of the revisions. Meanwhile, the National People's Congress authorizes its Standing Committee to amend Annex 1 and 2 to the Basic Law. In the second step, the MPC Standing Committee, in accordance with the law, amends Annex 1 and 2, which will contain specific and explicit provisions on the new democratic electoral system. After the amendment to Annex 1 and 2 at the state level is completed, the Hong Kong SAR will amend local laws accordingly. As President Xi Jinping points out, Hong Kong's major shift from chaos to stability once again proves that to ensure the steady practice of one country, two systems in Hong Kong SAR, in the long run, we must always uphold the principle of patriots governing Hong Kong. Only when this principle is upheld can the central authorities' overall jurisdiction over the Hong Kong SAR be effectively implemented. The constitutional order as established by the Constitution and the basic law be effectively safeguarded, and the various deep-seated problems be effectively resolved. Only in this way can Hong Kong achieve durable stability. I want to emphasize that over the past 24 years, since Hong Kong's return, China has remained committed to one country, two systems, implementing the law on safeguarding national security in Hong Kong and improving the electoral system of the SAR, both aimed at upholding and improving one country, two systems, and ensuring lasting stability and prosperity of Hong Kong. China remains unwavering in its resolve to fully and accurately implement one country, two systems, to safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests, and oppose any external interference. We hope that the relevant countries will understand China's position on Hong Kong-related issues, respect China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, recognize the fact that Hong Kong affairs are purely China's internal affair, refrain from interfering in Hong Kong affairs in any form, and do more that is conducive to the long-term stability of Hong Kong. Thank you. Now I'm ready to take questions.
Thank you, Minister. Now the floor is open to questions. When you are given the floor, please finish your question within 1 minute. Thank you. Naweed Jabakil from CGTN, please.
Hi, Minister. Yeah, regardless of how Beijing presents this, the move is likely to anger some other global powers, including this country, the UK, the EU as well, both of whom have already voiced concerns about the plans and threatened more sanctions. I just wanted to gain a sense, does China care much about their response and any further measures they may take, particularly when you've just said that, quote, China will prevent, stop and punish foreign interference in Hong Kong?
Thank you for your questions. Yes, we realize that there are many countries expressed the so-called concerns to us, or some countries even threatened sanctions to us. The so-called concerns are totally unacceptable, and we firmly oppose any sanctions. The so-called concerns are groundless and unreasonable. Hong Kong is part of China. Hong Kong affair is totally China's internal affairs. Non-interference of each other's internal affairs is an important principle of the United Nations Charter and an important principle governing international relations. China does not interfere in other countries' internal affairs. Now, can we bear other countries to interfere in our own affairs? So these kind of concerns, in whatever forms, is basically a kind of intervention in China's internal affairs. So we will never accept that. Talking about further movements or even sanctions by some foreign countries, I have to say, the information they got was wrong. So the judgment is also wrong. Based on wrong information and wrong judgment, if they take wrong measures, they will not be accepted and it will be futile. It does not work for China. You know, China is the #2 largest economy in the world. And we are the largest trading partner for over 120 countries. Last year, China overtook the United States as the biggest trading partner for the European Union. And according to the United Nations, China is the only country that has the full category of industrial categories in the world. So when we are quite poor and weak, we are not afraid of any sanction. How can we be afraid of sanction today? So don't underestimate China's determination to safeguard our national interest. We have the ability as well as the will to safeguard our national interests as well as our dignity. We would ask the relevant countries to respect China's position on Hong Kong and other issues, and understand China's efforts to safeguard our sovereignty and territorial integrity. China is a peace-loving nation. We always follow an independent foreign policy of peace, and China is no threat to any other country. Under the condition of mutual respect, equality, and win-win cooperation, we wish to develop relations with any other country. Thank you.
Tom Cheshire from Sky News, please.
How is Beijing going to define patriots? You've talked about loving China, and in the Chinese constitution, China is defined as a socialist state, and the chief characteristic is the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. Is this effectively a loyalty test?
Well, patriots must meet three main sets of criteria, as one senior figure points out. The first criterion is that patriots must sincerely uphold the nation's sovereignty, security, and development interests. They must not conduct activities endangering national security and sovereignty, which is the bottom line. Secondly, those who historically attack the central government openly advocate Hong Kong independence, badmouth or spread pessimism about China and Hong Kong in the international community, or even beg for foreign countries' sanction against China, are absolutely not patriots. Patriots must respect and uphold the fundamental system of the country and the constitutional order of the SAR. Patriotism also means loving the People's Republic of China. In China, where socialist democracy is practiced, different political views are allowed. But things that endanger the country's fundamental system, which is the socialist system led by the Communist Party of China, is absolutely not allowed. To respect and uphold the constitutional order of the SAR, one must resolutely uphold national unity, sovereignty, and security. Accurately understand and grasp the superior subordinate relationship between the central authorities and the Hong Kong SAR, and properly exercise the SAR's high degree of autonomy. Thank you.
James Landale from BBC.
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for the briefing this morning. I've got a very sort of simple question, really. Why is the Chinese Communist Party so afraid of democracy in Hong Kong?
You say it's a simple question, but I think actually it's a quite a complicated issue. It seems that you still have misunderstanding about the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is not afraid of democracy in Hong Kong. Actually, one country, two systems is the best practice to ensure democracy and freedom in Hong Kong. Over the past 24 years, Hong Kong performed one country, two system very well under the leadership of the central government led by the Communist Party. The Communist Party follow a people-centered approach that is putting people first, putting people's interests first, and the safeguarding freedom of expression and democracy is written in the Chinese Constitution. What we oppose is the destruction or the cross-line activity of sabotaging of the Hong Kong SAR and damaging the security and national unity, which is some people are advocating for Hong Kong independence. That has gone far beyond the bottom line. That will not be tolerated. And actually that it is the common practice in the world. So we mean we'll continue to follow one country, two system principle in Hong Kong, but anyone must who hopes to have worked or lived in Hong Kong must follow or obey the fundamental law in Hong Kong so that Hong Kong can still be a law-based society. The one country, two system principle will be ensured for long-term stability in Hong Kong. Thank you.
James Miles from The Economist.
Yes, I wonder, just to follow up on that, whether you can tell me what is the difference between the basic principles of democracy in Hong Kong and democracy on the mainland. Obviously, the institutions are different, the methods are different. You have the National People's Congress on the mainland and LegCo and the Election Committee in Hong Kong. But in terms of the basic principles of democracy, is there any difference between democracy on the mainland and democracy in Hong Kong?
As I said just now, it is stipulated in the Chinese Constitution that democracy and freedom of expression are guaranteed. So Hong Kong is part of China, and Hong Kong, the Constitution also covers Hong Kong. A high degree of autonomy means Hong Kong takes a different political, economic, and social system with the mainland, which is guaranteed under the one country, two system framework. For democracy, what you said about the democracy may be different from what we call democracy. Democracy does not mean saying anything you want, because you have to pay attention to the national interest and to the well-being of other people. In every country, democracy has limits. So in order to better perform democracy and freedom of speech, one must obey the Constitution and support the social order, not to damage the normal running of the society. This kind of democracy will not be welcomed anywhere. So it is our firm determination to carry out democracy and freedom in Hong Kong, but those democracy and freedom must be beneficial to Hong Kong's long-term stability and prosperity and to the interests of the Hong Kong people. Thank you.
Sylvia Hui from AP.
Good morning, Minister. Hong Kong has recently been dropped from the influential Heritage Foundation ranking of the world's freest economies. Is there not concern among officials at the state level that these political reforms could cause serious damage to Hong Kong's future as a financial hub? And if I may ask a very quick separate question, when can we expect the changes to take legal effect, and when will the next legislative elections be?
Thank you. For your first question, my answer is absolutely no. Because the improvement of the electoral system is to improve the situation in Hong Kong, which will guarantee the long-term stability of the one country, two systems principle and the running of the Hong Kong government, which will provide a peaceful environment and stable environment for all business. You know, business likes predictability. We believe that with further predictability and peace, stability ensured in Hong Kong, foreign investors will have confidence in Hong Kong. Things have proven that, you know, last year, since the passover of the Hong Kong National Security Law, Hong Kong Security Index has risen for quite some time. And due to the COVID-19, the economy of Hong Kong suffered some recession last year, but it's got momentum gradually because it's undergoing a shift from chaos to stability. I saw business confidence is recovered in Hong Kong. And the second question about the timetable, I think you can follow closely about the National People's Congress decision and the standing committee's amendment of the law, and also the Hong Kong SAR's Legislative Council's amendment of the law. So there are many steps. We don't have a timetable yet, but I think the central government will work closely with the chief executive and the Legislative Council in Hong Kong to ensure this process is smooth and to have a long-term effect to really achieve its goal. Thank you for that.
Farhan Ahmed from RT.
Thank you, Minister. Just on a broader geopolitical point, of course, Joe Biden has come into power in the United States. What does this mean for relations globally, not just with the US, but with the UK as well, because it can't be ignored, the US-UK dynamic. You said in the briefing that you'd appreciate if other countries do not appreciate in Hong Kong and China's internal affairs, but surely at this point, it's almost inevitable that they would. The course that Joe Biden's taking is to build an international alliance against China. So what's China's response to that? Is it just going to be calling for more lack of interference, or will there be actually concrete action?
Thank you for your question. Perhaps it seems not directly involved in today's topic, but I also would like to answer your question. China follows an independent foreign policy of peace, I just said. So we don't formalize with any other country, and we follow our principles in the world. We have set up our goal of building a new type of major international relations and work with other countries to promote a community of shared future. So it is our will to work with all countries for a peaceful and harmonious world. Cold War mentality or joining forces with other countries to contain China will not work. I would urge the relevant countries to abandon the Cold War mentality and work with China and other countries to address the pressing needs that this globe is facing. For example, COVID-19, we need to work together to address the pressing issue, and climate change. will see the effect of climate change shortly, and China is unswervingly in its will to work with the international community to tackle with climate change. And also on international issues and hotspot issues, I think both China and the United States and other countries have a lot of room to cooperate. On China-US relations, we have reiterated many times that we want to build a new type of relations with the United States, which is non-confrontational, mutually beneficial, and win-win cooperation. I think the United States and China should respect each other and putting aside differences and focus on cooperation. With the United Kingdom and other countries, I believe that as long as we follow the principle of mutual respect and non-interference in others' internal affairs, we'll have sound and healthy development of our bilateral relations, which is also a very important relationship. With Russia, we have very close relations in today's world because we share many similarities in our world views, and our two leaders have maintained close contacts with each other. We believe that both China and Russia can work together as a stabilizing force in today's world. Thank you.
Xu Liang from the Phoenix Infonews channel.
Hello, Minister. I just noticed that the electoral system of Hong Kong is one of the hot topics among the UK public. So in order to help the Britons understand the state course of the Hong Kong better, especially understanding the concept of pages governing Hong Kong and reducing the misinterpretation. So what Chinese government would like to do in the next step?
Thank you. I think your questions involves two things. The first is from the short term. That means many British citizens may have wrong opinion about China's policy toward Hong Kong. And from the long term, actually it means a deficiency of realizing China. What we are going to do is to continue to engage with the British public to tell about our position, our policy on Hong Kong, and to try to win understanding and support from the British public. Today's online press briefing actually is an aim to achieve that purpose. Actually, we can find out that in the international community, many countries, actually most countries, support our position on Hong Kong. So in the United Nations 46th session of the Human Rights Council, there are 70 countries made a common speech supporting China's policy on Hong Kong, and 20 plus countries speak independently in support of China's policy over Hong Kong. That means our positions are widely understood and supported in the international society. We also hope that today's media, including British media and the world media, to objectively report China's positions, especially China's intention, and not to make bad news on China, because most British citizens know about China through the media, not through real experience in China. In that sense, we hope that after the pandemic, we would like to arrange when we will welcome more British people to visit Hong Kong and visit China to realize the change, which is from chaos to stability in Hong Kong, to draw your own conclusion. In the long run, we also hope the British public to fully realize the nature of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government. According to independent research center, which is Pew Research Center and other independent centers in Singapore, the Chinese government, led by the governing party, which is the Communist Party of China, have won the biggest support rate in the world, almost 90%. So what does that mean? That means the Chinese government won the wholehearted support of the people. If China and the Communist Party is as bad as some media depicts, how can the public support China in such a large ratio? So in general, we wish to continue to introduce the real situation in Hong Kong and the real situation in China. We welcome friends from all countries to visit Hong Kong and China when the pandemic situation is controlled, to feel about China. You know, in the 21st century, confrontation or clashes will bring no end. Cooperation is the only choice. Thank you. So with that, I think time is limited, and we will stop today's online event. And thank you for all for your attendance. I wish you good luck and smoothness in your work.